Let's kick off this explainer by throwing you right into a terrifying hypothetical, a concept that sits at the very core of George Orwell's absolute masterpiece. What if your thoughts were a crime? And I don't mean your actions, and I don't mean the things you say out loud. I mean the silent, totally private workings of your own mind. Just imagine living in a world where your brain is no longer a private sanctuary, but a literal battlefield where the government decides what's true and what's false. Wild, right? Well, this isn't just some spooky campfire story. It's the daily reality for a guy named Winston Smith. So let's drop right into the opening scene of his life and see what happens when you aren't even safe inside your own head. The story opens with this legendary line. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Okay, stop right there. The clocks striking 13? Instantly, you know something is deeply, deeply wrong with this reality. We meet our main guy, Winston Smith. He's this frail, 39-year-old guy in a blue uniform stepping into a gritty, suffocating apartment building that reeks of boiled cabbage. The electricity is turned off during the day, the elevator is totally busted, and everywhere he looks, this enormous face on a poster is just staring him down. It immediately signals to us that all comfort, all basic humanity has been completely stripped away. Which brings us to the first part of our story, a world without freedom. So Winston lives in London, but it's not the London we know. It's now called Airstrip 1, and the architecture alone is designed to make you feel like an absolute bug. The skyline is dominated by these massive, glittering white pyramidal structures, like the Ministry of Truth, where Winston actually works. These things soar 1,000 feet into the air. They just completely dwarf the rotting, cardboard-patched shacks where the actual citizens live. It's a visual reminder of exactly who's in charge. And pasted right on the side of that massive white pyramid are the three official slogans of the ruling party. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Look at that for a second. The government is openly conditioning people to accept absolute contradictions as sacred rules. It's a world built entirely on paradoxes. They demand that citizens embrace a reality that defies all basic common sense. Why? Because if you can't trust your own logic, you have to rely entirely on the party for the truth. To keep everyone in line, they use this incredibly creepy piece of tech called the telescreen. It's basically a metal plaque on the wall that blasts propaganda 24/7. But here's the catch. It's watching and listening to you at the exact same time. You can turn the volume down a bit, but you can literally never turn it off. The thought police use these to monitor everything. Every sigh, every whisper, it's all recorded. Honestly, it mirrors a lot of our modern anxieties about data tracking and smart devices, right? You just have to live on pure instinct, knowing that you are always being watched. And that escape? Yeah, totally impossible. But human nature is a funny thing. Let's get into the spark of rebellion. You see, in Oceania, rebelling doesn't start with buying a weapon or plotting an explosion. It starts with a pen, a beautiful blank diary Winston got at a junk shop, and a single fatal thought. This introduces us to the concept of thought crime. It is the essential crime that contains all other crimes inside it. Basically, it means harboring any unspoken doubt about the party. Just by sitting in a tiny corner of his room, hidden from the telescreen, and opening that diary, Winston is committing an offense that carries the death penalty. And then, in this moment of sheer, unadulterated panic, his pen just starts sliding across the paper. Almost on autopilot, Winston frantically scribbles, "Down with Big Brother," over and over again. By physically writing those words, Winston realizes he's a dead man. The thought police will get him eventually. There's no way around it. But here's the crazy irony. Accepting his inevitable death is exactly the thing that finally pushes him to start truly living. So where does a dead man go from here? Let's look at the illusion of hope. Winston clings to this weird memory of a voice in a dream that told him, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness." He's pretty sure that voice belongs to O'Brien, this burly, high-ranking inner party member. They once shared this split-second, secretive glance that made Winston think, okay, he's secretly on my side. Add to that, Winston is suddenly slipped a secret note at work by a rebellious young woman named Julia. The note just says, "I love you." Boom. They kick off this highly illegal, clandestine love affair, hiding out in secret rented rooms, and suddenly Winston has this desperate, fragile sense of hope. Spending time with Julia leads Winston to a massive realization about how their society is actually structured. The party completely destroys private loyalties. They enforce constant fear and hatred. They even brainwash kids to spy and turn in their own parents. But the proles? That's the impoverished working class who make up the vast majority of the population. The thought police basically ignore them. Because of that, the proles still hold on to primitive emotions, actual relationships, and real humanity. Winston realizes that if there's any hope for the future to overthrow the system, it lies entirely with the proles. Fueled by this new hope, Winston and Julia take a massive leap of faith. They finally get a meeting with O'Brien to join the mythical underground resistance called the Brotherhood. O'Brien sits them down and asks them a series of absolutely chilling questions. Are you prepared to give your lives? Are you prepared to commit sabotage? To all of these hardcore questions, they eagerly say yes. But then O'Brien asks, are you prepared to separate and never see one another again? And Julia just immediately cries out no. It's such a powerful moment. They are willing to do literally anything to rebel except let go of their love for each other. Which makes this next part so much more devastating. Betrayal and Room 101. Picture this. Winston and Julia are relaxing in their secret rented room, feeling completely safe. Winston looks out the window and peacefully says, "We are the dead." But then, an iron voice echoes back from right behind them. "You are the dead." It turns out that voice is coming from a hidden telescreen tucked behind a picture frame on the wall. The thought police had been watching them the entire time. Their little rebellion is crushed in a split second, and Winston is dragged away to the terrifying windowless fortress known as the Ministry of Love. And here inside the ministry, we get a gut-wrenching plot twist. The man in charge of Winston's torture? It's O'Brien. Yeah, O'Brien was never an ally. He was the one setting the trap. He reveals the true, terrifying purpose of the Ministry of Love. See, the party doesn't just want blind obedience. They don't want to just execute heretics and accidentally turn them into martyrs. Oh no, that's too easy. They want to systematically torture you until they completely rewrite your brain. They want to wash your soul entirely clean until there is nothing left inside you but a genuine, pathetic love for Big Brother. And then they kill you. O'Brien then delivers what might be the most horrifying vision of the future ever put to paper. He looks at Winston and says, "If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever." It's chilling, right? The party's motivation isn't to get rich or to live in luxury or even just to survive. It is about the pure, intoxicating thrill of absolute power. They want power purely for the sake of power. Forever. Now, despite weeks of unimaginable physical torture, Winston still clings to one tiny thread of his humanity. He hasn't betrayed his inner love for Julia. But O'Brien knows exactly how to snap that thread. He sends Winston to Room 101. So, what is the ultimate terror waiting inside Room 101? Well, it's tailored to the individual. It's simply the worst thing in the world for you. For Winston, that means a cage of starving, vicious rats strapped directly to his face. In a moment of absolute, devastating psychological terror, Winston finally breaks. He screams out, "Do it to Julia, not me." The party wins. But seriously, how does a government design a society where this level of control is even possible? Let's step back from the story for a second and decode the hidden meanings behind this psychological control. The entire system rests on a concept called doublethink. It's the ability to hold two completely contradictory beliefs in your head at the exact same time and genuinely accept both of them. The party forces citizens to consciously lie to themselves, but also completely believe the lie they just told. For example, you might know for a fact that Oceania is at war with East Asia today, but you simultaneously believe Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, just because the party said so this morning. It's a psychological survival trick. You have to be able to do this if your reality changes every 5 minutes based on the government's whim. And this mental gymnastics is paired with Orwell's brilliant, terrifying warning about language itself. The party is actively destroying old speak, which is just regular English, full of nuance and emotion, and replacing it with Newspeak. Newspeak is a shrinking vocabulary. It's purposely designed to narrow the range of human thought. Think about it. If you literally delete the words needed to express freedom or rebellion, those concepts become physically unthinkable. You can't commit a thought crime if the words to form that thought don't exist anymore. Then you add in the control of history. The party's motto is, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Remember Winston's day job at the Ministry of Truth? He was literally rewriting old newspapers to make sure Big Brother's past predictions were always 100% accurate. The party stays infallible because they are constantly erasing and editing objective reality. It's an incredibly scary concept, and let's be honest, it feels deeply uncomfortably relevant in our modern era of digital misinformation and shifting truths. Which brings us to our final section, why 1984 matters today. Long before his spirit was broken in room 101, Winston wrote this in his diary: "Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. Today, we live in a world saturated with constant surveillance right in our pockets, highly sophisticated algorithms, and endless battles over what counts as fake news. Orwell's warnings about censorship and the manipulation of truth are arguably more vital now than they were when he wrote them. He's challenging us to realize that when the very existence of objective reality is threatened, the whole foundation collapses. So as we navigate our own hyper-connected, data-driven lives, the final question I want to leave you with is this: will we have the courage to defend objective truth, or will we eventually be persuaded to just love our own cages? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning the reality around you.